We're back now at 8:09 with a medical miracle. 1-year-old Bronson Staker was left unattended in his bathtub and drowned. When he was pulled from the water, he had stopped breathing and had no pulse. But that is just the beginning of this incredible story.
So it was just a typical Saturday morning here at our house.
It was Sara Staker's worst nightmare. While giving 2 of her sons a bath, the young mother briefly stepped away to do some chores, got distracted, and when she returned, the unthinkable. Her youngest son, 16-month-old Bronson, submerged in the tub.
He was white. His eyes were rolled back in his head. His lips were blue, and the bathtub was so full.
Sarah's frantic attempts at CPR didn't help Bronson. Even the EMTs couldn't revive him. When they reached the hospital, there was no pulse. Bronson was not breathing.
He was just gone. It was so fast, and I just wanted to rewind. I just wanted to do it again, and I just kept begging, please, baby, please, please wake up.
Doctors struggled to restore the child's heartbeat, eventually succeeding.
Our sweet little boy laying there with a tube in his mouth and wires and IVs, and I can't even count how many things he was connected to.
But with Bronson still in a coma, doctors suggested the Stakers try an innovative therapy called therapeutic hypothermia, using cooling blankets to drop his body's temperature and hopefully prevent brain damage.
This is keeping your body temperature cool, but not so cold that you're preventing all your organs from working well. But it's really just an idea is to keep the brain from all the cellular processes that can then worsen your outcome from happening.
As Bronson lay unconscious, his mother began putting her thoughts and emotions into words, writing a blog about the ordeal.
We're trying not to think about the what ifs and what thens, but are taking things hour by hour. We're still praying for a miracle.
For nearly 2 weeks, nothing. Then, a miracle. Bronson woke up, alert. He started to regain mental and motor functions.
You could see it immediately, lifting just a little bit with his chin as he leaned forward, and he recognized me when I walked in the room.
Slowly but surely, the boy thought to be lost forever improved.
And they told us that Bronson would have to leave the hospital in a wagon, that he wasn't going to be allowed to walk out of the hospital, but he had a mind of his own, and he walked out on his own power.
And I am pleased to say that Bronson Staker is here with us this morning with his parents, Sara and Matt. Good morning to all of you. He looks and seems great.
He's perfect.
Same little boy that you knew before.
Absolutely. It's almost unbelievable, really.
Sara, let's go back to that horrible day. You cringed a moment ago when I used the word unattended in describing what happened. I mean, you and I talked before the segment. I think every parent has had that moment where they made a mistake, and most of us thankfully got away with it. Describe what that moment was like when you went and saw Bronson in the tub.
It was horrible. It was the most helpless feeling I've ever had in my life. You know, to walk in and see that he was gone. There was no question in my mind that he was gone. He was white, his lips were blue, his eyes were rolled back. He didn't look like himself. As we noted,
they couldn't revive him. Matt, you guys got to the hospital, the doctors worked and worked. Had you resigned yourself to the thought and the belief that you'd lost your son?
I don't think at that point his heart was beating, but they were breathing for him. However, it was an undescribable feeling. Any parent would just be so distraught and traumatized to see their son or any child with all the wires and tubes in him. It was terrible.
And then in the middle of this, the doctors are saying, look, even if we revive him, he's not going to be normal. There'll be brain damage. And then they talked to you about this hypothermia therapy. What did you know? What were you told about it? And was it a tough decision to make, Sara?
It was excruciating because every fiber of your being as a mother wants to hold your child, especially when they're hurting. You want to hold them and hug them and wrap them in a blanket and keep them warm. And so the thought that he would have to lay there where we couldn't hold him, we couldn't touch him. In a coma.
With his body temperature drastically lower.
Exactly. He was so cold and puffy from all the fluids they were pumping through him, and it was just excruciating.
But Matt, there was really no other choice, was there? I mean, what do they tell you? Is this or what?
they gave us the option of going forward with the treatment, and we just asked them and said, if this was your own child, would you do it? And they said absolutely yes. So we said, well, all the positives outweighed very few negatives, so we went forward with it.
And 13 days go by, Sara, and you described in the tape piece a moment ago that moment of watching him wake up. Did you believe what you were seeing?
You know, it had just been such a long, I mean, you completely lose track of time there in the PICU or the ICU. And to walk in one morning and expect him to be the same child he had been for this whole interim of time was such a shock.
But how quickly did you realize that he was the same child?
Instantly.
Because you really, because
Instantly.
you had been told he probably wouldn't be.
No, we had been told that we would probably take home a 16-month-old newborn. We had been told that probably it would be months of rehab, maybe even years before he began to regain.
But he recognized you immediately.
I walked in the room and it's like the lights were on. You know, immediately I could see that he was tracking and connecting and looking from one nurse to the other. And when I walked in, he lifted his chin and I could see that he knew who I was. You know, there's that difference when someone looks past you and through you and kind of vacantly off, or when they look at you and they know who you are. You can see that.
Yeah, and Matt, I've seen some of the video, home video you guys took where you're there, you are playing with the toys, all those things, the connections, everything was there.
Everything was there. It was still he was weak because he was laying down for, you know, he was laying down for 10 or 11 days. So of course he was weak, but all of his cognitive of his brain was still there.
And what do they say? I mean, he'll continue to grow. The doctors progress at a normal pace.
You know, before we left the hospital, they had suggested that we set up about 6 months worth of physical and occupational therapy appointments for him. And they had sat with me and made a list of things that he could do and was capable of before the incident. And we set those as goals. You know, for the next 6 months worth of therapy, we'll hope that by the end of that time, he'll be able to do all of those same things. We'll reevaluate and then we'll set 6 more months of therapy. So we were in it for the long haul. And from the time he woke up until the time we left the hospital on Friday morning, the 12th of February, he hit every single one of those milestones. It was like we were living the first year of his life all over again and fast forward.
This story just gives me chills, I got to say.
It's amazing.
It has got to have fundamentally changed you as a couple, you as a family. How many ways has it changed you?
Well, I think that the scope of what we've learned goes far beyond the bathtub. You know, I think that the lessons that we've learned are innumerable. I feel like life is just so fragile, and it's, as parents, you know, we're so busy, and we try to multitask things and do so many different things, and it's really easy to get distracted by the things that aren't the most important things, and then the things that are most important suffer. And I hope that we've learned that lesson. I hope that we've learned, most of all, that God is a God of miracles. He's a loving Father in heaven, and that He hears us. He knows what we need. He answers our prayers. He answers the prayers of the thousands of people that we don't even know from around the world that were praying for us.
And I know a lot of strangers rallied for Bronson and for you, and I just want to thank all of you for coming on and sharing the story and the life lessons that came with it. Matt and Sara and Bronson, who's just having a great old time here. And we're so happy to see him having a great old time, and we're so happy for all of you. Thank you again for being